I was an engineer and in 2008 lost my job due to the economic collapse. Jobs were scarce. I didn't know where to turn to get help updating my resume. Online services and coaches charge hundreds, even thousands of dollars. I took matters into my own hands and learned how to craft interview-winning resumes. Shortly later, I landed a job with a Fortune 500 company. I have helped many achieve similar success. Now I share my tips to create interview-winning resumes, interviewing excellence, and high-performance growth strategies on my podcast, Career Growth Made Easy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Craig Ansell. Today, we have a special treat for you. We have another interview guest. This is Wayne Witczak, and he comes to us from the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. Welcome, Wayne.
Thank you, Craig. Happy to be here.
I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend some time with me and our listeners. I know they're going to really enjoy today's show.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So a little bit about the background of how I got to know you. For my day job, I am a project manager for Siemens Energy. And many times our company likes to help out within the community, look where we can do some potential volunteering events, help out in situations. And want to send a big thank you to Duke Energy, specifically Jay Chesser, because he had been in contact with Siemens and offered up a volunteer experience to work with you, Wayne, at the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch and to help out the kids. So wanted to definitely thank both of those organizations for putting us in touch, because not only was that volunteering day an awesome, lengthy experience, but it helped us to connect and see where else we can share this information to possibly bring some more awareness to the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch.
Absolutely. And again, thank you, Duke Energy. Thank you, Jay, personally, but also thank you, Siemens, not only for allowing people like you, Craig, to come out and experience that giving activity, but also making a financial contribution to transform that cottage for the children.
Absolutely. It's an enjoyable experience to give back to the community, and definitely appreciate our organizations that support us and make us aware of these situations. So my listeners know a little bit about me, Wayne, but I was wondering, do you have a little bit of a background, maybe something you'd like to share with our listeners so they can get to know you a little better?
Absolutely. So usually when I go visit, I'm the face of the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches. I'm the person that goes out and engages the public to see how they would like to get involved with us. But I always like to start off with who I am. I met my wife at 17, married her at 19. We've been together 41 years. I have 3 successful children. I have 2 outstanding grandchildren, and 1 step-grandchild now, new to the family the last 6 months. And my priority in life is my family, and to help my kids and my grandkids get to the levels that they want to in life. And of course, my passion is helping children and serving the state of Florida and the disadvantaged, at-risk, neglected children that sadly we have in Florida.
Thank you for sharing your background, your story of family. And, towards the end of that part, I think you used the word disadvantaged. Sometimes even for myself speaking, I don't know that we appreciate all the benefits we have living in the United States, living in Florida, and certain economic situations are better for some than others. And I know some kids do have challenges, whether it's personally in their home lives, right?
Absolutely. And, we always, we're a private placement organization, but we're also a partner with the state of Florida for foster children that need to be placed, focusing on keeping sibling groups together. And I always say that we have a saying, there's no such thing as a bad kid. There's just a bad situation, bad surroundings, bad parenting, bad environment. So we try to bring the best out in our kids, and we've been doing it for 65 years.
Oh, that's fantastic. I had no idea the organization was that old. I bet you've seen a lot of ups and downs, but hopefully more ups at least, right?
I believe so. I've been here 10 years after serving Shriners Hospitals for Children's World Headquarters for 18 years. And I am very proud to see the very positive outcomes that come from the work that our Florida sheriffs and through us we do for these kids. And there's a big misconception out there about who we are because of our founders, Florida sheriffs. They're not juvenile delinquents. They're 5-year-old kids and up that have been abused, neglected, abandoned by their families. And we're here to provide a safe, loving home environment and focus on education after that. So very rewarding work for a very impactful organization.
I was looking, or rather listening and writing some notes, actually, Wayne, while you were speaking. And I'm very thankful for you helping clarify, because I think there can be a lot of nonprofit organizations, a lot of volunteering organizations out there that we're not aware of what they truly do or what they truly stand for. And that can cause some confusion with people, right?
Absolutely. There's 1.6 million the last time I researched of 501c3 charity type organization, nonprofit organizations in our country. And all of them aren't good. And I always, especially with our donor constituents that talk to me like family, they always ask, what's a good charity here and there? And, how do I pick them? And I say, you got to get to know them, don't do it from a desktop, go visit them, meet the people, understand the culture, understand how your giving is used, be a part of that giving. And I feel that is the best way before you open up your checkbook. If you're truly wanting to give and make an impact, get to know the people you're giving to.
Oh, that is just fantastic. I really like what you're saying. And it strikes true with me, being that the theme of the show, as you're aware, is career growth made easy. Many times people wonder, Craig, how do you find guests? How do people come to your show, or, maybe have suggestions? And almost anybody could be on the show, but the way I work it is we tie it in with a message, a theme to something that's related to career growth. Now, sitting here with you, Wayne, on this awesome Friday in Florida, maybe somebody says, Craig, what does Wayne have to do with Florida Sheriff Youth Ranch and Career Growth Made Easy, or how can you tie all that together? But if you pull back a few strings, a few threads, and you open it up, you almost always find a story that you can connect to personal or professional development and growth. And I think by you saying that specific phrase, Wayne, talking about going and visiting, getting to know your organizations, that's really important, not only for nonprofit and volunteering, but also if you're interested in interviewing and applying for a role at a new company, don't you think?
Absolutely. And, I think I shared with you when we first started talking how I came to the youth ranches, which was a very funny story that involved my son. Which I'll share if you like. But then when I thought about what I wanted to bring to the table on this particular call, the one thing that just stood out with me was find your passion. And I think that I found my passion, which is now my job. My passion feeds me and my family. And I kind of stumbled on it, to be honest with you. It wasn't, I wanted to be an administrator running hospitals around the country. And now I'm the principal friend raiser for abused, abandoned, neglected children for the state of Florida.
Wow. So you had an initial focus or vision. The end in mind was to be an administrator for Florida hospitals, huh?
Yeah, I started in the hospital in Brandon, Florida, Brandon Community Hospital, when I was 17 as a stock boy. A gentleman there, Ken Mason, he was the CFO, the controller. He took a liking to me. He mentored me. He gave me my first opportunity to work in the accounting department. He started paying for my education, community college first, then the University of Tampa. And then promoted me personally into an internal auditing job where the actually hiring manager didn't want to hire me because I didn't have any experience. But I had the character traits, obviously, that he was looking for in the position, and he sadly overrid her and put me in that role. And at the time, it was Humana Hospital for Children, where Humana was the major hospital corporation around the country, and we were ranked, I think, the second most profitable hospital in the country. And so I did defense audits with insurance companies where they came in and tried to challenge our bills, and I had to explain why a Tylenol pill cost $6 versus what it really cost. And I learned a lot from him, and then he moved on down to another facility, Manatee Memorial Hospital, which was a 512-bed, not a trauma center, but almost a trauma center. And
it's pretty large, yeah.
Yeah, and he promoted me into a financial analyst role where I was managing a walk-in clinic, a print shop, a home healthcare agency, and also doing budgeting for 100 different departments. And then he moved on to Sunrise Hospital in Vegas from Florida, and he called me and said, "You want to go to Vegas?" And I said, "Unfortunately, no, because my family was here, my mom and dad, my extended family, my wife's family, our kids, our family was starting." So we decided to stay put. And this was back before the computer. I'm 58, but back before computers, I opened up the newspaper, found this job listed, financial analyst for a multi-hospital system in Tampa, Florida. And I'm like, there is no multi-hospital system in Tampa, Florida. I knew them all. I knew what all our competition throughout the state, the country was, the region. And but I was intrigued. So I put my application in and mailed my resume, and come to find out, it was Shriners Hospitals for Children's world headquarters, 22 hospitals all across the country, Mexico, Canada. And I joined there as a financial analyst. Actually, I was interviewing for a financial analyst position. And when I went in, I told him, I said, "Look," then the hiring VP was a gentleman by the name of Jack Ward. I said, "I don't want to be an analyst anymore. I want to be a hospital administrator." I said, "I'll give you all the analytical experience you need if you give me all the hospital administration experience I can take in." And he hired me in as the associate to the executive administrator of the 22 hospitals. And then I was promoted to the associate executive administrator. And my job was basically oversight of the $850 million operating budget, almost $1 billion. And, every request for funding, every financial pro forma for rate of return for equipment would cross my desk. And then I got into building the hospital program. My hands have been involved with 7 of the 22 hospitals. My biggest project was Sacramento, California, which was a $151 million, 3.5-year project. And it was a very, very rewarding experience. Shriners Hospitals, one of the largest, if not the largest charity system, 100 years celebrated this year. I gained so much knowledge and experience. And when I left them, I wanted to take everything that I've learned from the mega charity and help other nonprofits sustain themselves, because smaller nonprofits, especially community nonprofits, which are very, very critical to, meeting the needs of their communities, they're all one gift away from closing their doors. Oh. And so I wanted to go in and help them with sustainability, with growth, with board development, with fund development. And I started a consulting company, and I was on retainer for several charities, helping them.
You have so much to share and so much to offer. I almost hate to interrupt you, but I'm going to take that chance. I don't throw you off the tracks there. So for my listeners, Wayne, what position did you start at way back at the age of 17? I was trying to take notes, copious notes. So when you started, what age were you at 17? Or excuse me, what position?
I was a stock clerk.
Okay.
In a hospital purchasing department. And I was schlepping boxes of IV solution off a truck into a warehouse. And I'd do it all over again, Craig. I'd do it all over again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's an important message here, at least for the Career Growth Made Easy listeners, definitely one for me. At one point in my life, I was in a warehouse environment as well. It was, I prior lived in New Jersey. And so I had a significant role during high school in the warehouse and also in the high-end handmade rug industry. But we should all not forget that each and every one of us has a purpose in life. We may not know what it is. It may not be clear to us now. For me, I didn't know I was going to be sitting in front of a microphone at this age. I didn't know Wayne was going to be on my show. I didn't know I was going to meet the awesome folks and all the people with beautiful, generous, giving hearts at the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. I knew Duke Energy. A, I'm a power consumer from them, a residential consumer, but B, they're one of my customers through Siemens. But I never knew that I was going to meet Jay Chesser. And I never knew that this was going to happen. So we don't always know what's going to happen specifically. We might have a general idea, a general vision, a general goal, and that's okay. But I think really the thing that touches me the most so far, Wayne, well, there's two things actually. One, at 17, you're performing a job that it might not be your goal in life to work in a warehouse and move boxes around or whatnot. And if it is, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you enjoy that kind of environment. But somebody saw something in you, you had a passion, a twinkle in your eye, as they say, and you started to get, a hand up, a boost hand from, I think it was the CEO. And so that's amazing how you started your educational journey. But then something else while you were talking, Wayne, caught my ear. And not only did you read a newspaper to find a job opening, and then, yes, believe it or not, listeners, he physically mailed his resume and job application in. But when you were at that stage in your life, Wayne, if I took my notes correctly, and if I heard you correctly, while you were interviewing for a position, you took your expertise, your experience, along with confidence, Wayne, and you told them, here's what I really want to do, and here's what I'll do for you. Is that correct when you changed from a financial analyst position to being interested in being an administrator of hospitals?
Absolutely. And I still have the Tampa Tribune ad in my archives that I responded to that said financial analyst for multi-hospital system. But
wow.
I mean, I knew what I wanted. And, one other thing, and this is something that I knew this, but then it was reinforced here recently. It's always easier to find a job when you have a job. And so, it's much tougher when you lose a job and then you have to go out and search because your anxiety level is up because you need to eat, you need to pay your bills. But I had a job. And, what did I have to lose to take a chance by telling them what I wanted? If they said they didn't want me, I just went back to work, at where I was. And so, I was in and the same was with the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches, which I can tell that story later at another time. But, I was already working. So I was in a better, vantage point or better seat to, try to make things happen for me.
Oh, and I wish this was a video recorded at this time, and we're working on that. But you got me smiling from ear to ear because of a phrase that you said, and I'll do my best. I took a note to say it the way you did. But it's easier to find a job when you have a job, and that just hits home with me so much. Because for the listeners that have been with me for a while, they know the exact opposite happened to me. One day, Wayne, I was working towards 12 years of dedicated service in my company. And the next day, I was the victim of a RIF, a reduction in force. The economy was downsizing in 2008. And along with that, companies were too. I worked in engineering at an automotive high performance company. And I also supported customer service and different departments such as quality control. And when people stopped spending money in the economy buying vehicles, they certainly didn't need performance parts. If they didn't need performance parts, they didn't need engineers and support staff to manage that. So I was caught up in that rift, that reduction in force. And why am I mentioning that? This interview is not about me, but what I'll tell you, Wayne, I think you've already connected it. It's the opposite of your story. I had to go into battle stations mode. My emotions were ramped up through the ceiling. I had to figure out if I had a resume. If I did, where was it? How old was it? When was the last time I updated it? And then there was just the pure shock to let it settle in, to realize, what am I going to do? How am I going to feed my family? How are we going to pay the mortgage, the bills? So you hit it right on the head. It's a lot easier to look for a job and apply for a job when you have a job already. I wouldn't call it a safety net, but it's kind of like that, Wayne, right? It changes your emotions.
Well, and you don't know me well enough, but the whole reason that I left Shriners, and so when I say easier to find a job, when I found, Manatee Memorial, I had a job. When I was looking at Shriners, I had a job. And then when I was looking at the youth ranches, I had a job. But, my position, I made a career error in my position at the Shriner headquarters. I jumped off of hospital administration, which is where I was for 16 years, and I went over to fundraising and development. And it's a volunteer board of directors that manages that organization. And they brought in a VP that was over me, my position. And my position was phased out. One was because I was, making probably, being there 16 years, being on the hospital admin side of things, I was making good money. But the reason I was put over there is I was in the succession plan for leadership. And so it was where they wanted me at the time. And then the leadership changed. And of course, the strategy or the strategic vision changed. And the next thing you know, I was packing up my office. And I was devastated by that. And there was a conflict within the organization itself between the board and the paid leadership. And, which they didn't even know what was going on. And then they found out and they tried to bring me back. And that didn't, it just was a toxic environment. And I'm like, look, guys, and I had to regroup and I had to think about what I wanted. I mean, I made that change over to the fundraising side of things for a reason. And that's because I was getting burned out from the hospital, administration side. I wasn't getting any younger, and I wanted to, to continue making an impact with this one life that I was given. And so I finally, it was my decision to say, okay, hey, just put the brakes on all this. If you can do this for me in a severance package, I'm out of your hair. And so they did what I asked. And then that same year, they appointed me to a executive advisory committee that oversaw the department that I used to work for. Because I'm an active 25-year Shriner, and I had the respect of, the board of directors. And so that was an interesting thing, showing up to their first annual meeting and me sitting in the room, and the lady that eliminated my position walks in. And I always kept it professional, Craig. And
yeah,
I was always a positive individual, and I got a lot of compliments on, I could have made it really an ugly situation.
Uncomfortable for sure. Yeah.
And, but I took full advantage of it because I took an inventory of what I had, and that was the knowledge that this great institution gave me. And that's when I went out and started the consulting company. And I was able to do that because, my package gave me that financial luxury to do that.
Wow.
And
Hey, if I may again, Wayne, and you have so much to share, and I want to just kind of step it along. This is because I'll forget, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge you for a couple things, and you went through some difficult times, and this is a message too that our listeners can understand that we're all in different situations. We've all gone through difficult times, but in your case, in your story, and you're nowhere near finished with it, but you did something special. You recognized burnout. You brought that up on yourself, and you said, "Hey, I feel like I'm going through burnout, and I need to kind of, pull the cord, stop the train here. We're going to take a look inside myself." And it's hard, Wayne, to do that. I mean, that takes a lot of emotional restraint. It takes control. It takes self-awareness. So I definitely want to honor you for that and appreciate you for that, because not all of us can do that. Sometimes we just go to our job and do our work and start getting loaded heavier and heavier. Then the hours add up. And next thing you know, you're working overtime, whether it's paid or unpaid, if your salary, and maybe some nights and weekends, and it could just get to you. But you had the self-awareness to do that. So that's one thing I wanted to recognize. And then the other was, you used the word inventory, and I think you said inventory of what I had. And that is so absolutely important when we talk about career growth. We need to recognize our capabilities, our skill sets, yes, our education, our hard skills, the things we can do with our hands, our bodies, our minds, but also there's that soft skill, which is the emotional intelligence, fancy word for communication skill set. And when we look for new jobs, when we apply, when we build our resumes, it's really great to look inside ourselves and pull out the values, the features, the skill sets that we have. Something that maybe is now dusty and dark and dimly lit can be polished up, shined up, and used again in a different way. And through this story that you're sharing with us, Wayne, how you applied for one type of role and really your heart led you to say, I'm more interested in this type of role, and I will bring these benefits to your organization, to the fact that you recognized burnout and you're switching roles and then actually leaving one position that was being downsized to now, being either over or monitoring that position. You never know where your career path may take you, but you did, like you said, keep your professionalism, right? That was one of the key things about you.
I never burned any bridges to this day. Matter of fact, the president of the Shriners organization, there's two boards. So there was a chairman and a president. Both of them wrote my letter of recommendation for my resumes that went to the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches. And the other thing I will share is, by always staying positive and taking that inventory of me, that inventory of what I had, a lot of what I had was my network. And so when I went somewhere, people came with me.
Wow.
Even my president of Shriners Hospitals for Children became a donor of the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches. And, because people give to people. And that just goes, for me, my network is everything. And I always say we got to both meet 50-50. And maybe that's true. Maybe for some, maybe not for others. But, I invest in people, whether they're giving me a $5 donation or they're giving me a $500,000 donation. And by the way, my largest single gift in my history was $1 million cash gift. So
that's wonderful to hear. That's just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed, I've been lucky, but I'm very fortunate.
Well, I think your personality certainly has a lot to do with your makeup, Wayne, if I may offer that. But of the several things you just mentioned, there's a couple of key items to focus on, in my opinion. You said you worked on never burning bridges, right? Never burning people in your past, or I would assume talking negatively about past companies, casting shade or negativity. And that can be hard when we're in the emotional moment. When I was let go, when you were let go, right? When situations happen, you thought you're performing to your best, and then you get told you've not been meeting our objectives, or you get a negative performance review, or you're written on a process improvement or a performance improvement plan, and you're kind of one or two steps away from possibly being terminated. Those are the times where your emotions can really get the best of you instead of your logic, and your self-control can go by the wayside. So that's really difficult to manage. I know it is for me. And I always have to kind of check myself. If I feel that kind of, like a thermometer starting to rise in temperature, right? Starting to get towards boiling. If I start to feel that, I have to take a pause. Otherwise, I may say something or do something that would cause me to have regret,
Yeah. I don't know. I surrounded myself with successful people, and I listened. I remember sitting with actually a litigator, attorney out of Kentucky, Robert Turley. And Robert said to me, him and I went on a site visit, and we were meeting like with somebody like Mass General in Boston. And, I was young and trying to rule the world, I guess. And we went to dinner that night, and he goes, "Wayne, I have one word of advice for you." He goes, "If you go into a meeting and you do all the talking, you only know what you knew when you leave that meeting. But if you do all the listening, you not only know what you know what they know." And that's stuck with me now for years, decades. And
I love that. And, one of the little tools I use, it's the 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Listen twice as much as you talk.
Yeah. And, I just listen to people, and I try to just, bring into my knowledge base everything. And the other thing is, I don't feel like I ever looked at a job or a position as controlling me. I always looked at it as, this is one step in my path, in my journey to where I wanted to be. And where I want to be, which kind of goes back to having, a purposeful life and a job with purpose, is, we all have an expiration date, right? So what we do, between that, the time we're put on this earth and the time we live this earth is, what we did with our life. And I just always wanted to make sure that I did something with my life. I lost my father when I was 26. He was my best friend, my best man.
Sorry to hear that.
And I miss him every day, but everything I do is for my dad. Everything I do is to honor my dad. Well, I get up and I think about my dad, and I have a picture right here. I'm looking at my dad, and I know my dad's proud of me, but I was motivated by different things. I mean, I bought my first house when I was 19 years old. I got married when I was 19. My dad molded me. He put those values in me. Why rent when you can buy? Why make somebody else rich when, he was the manager of budget and expenses for the Long Island Railroad before they had VP titles. And he retired at 50 years old with a full pension.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like your late dad, the father, the hero, the mentor, the leader that gave you the right tool set, the right skill sets to move forward and be successful in life. But there are still a few things that you mentioned that I think are really valuable pieces of wisdom. And, I define wisdom a little bit differently than education or knowledge. I think as we get older, mature in life, whatever the right word set is, that we have this knowledge, but then the wisdom is how we choose to use our knowledge, when to use it, when to listen, when to speak, like you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah.
And you had a couple things let me get closer to the microphone. I'm leaning away with my notes. I've got a whole page here. Wayne, you're a very interesting person, very interesting life, positive life. So let's see here. Surround yourself with successful people. And then you also talked about your network, right? And I think networks also are very important, not only your personal, but your professional. And sometimes they bleed into each other in a positive way, because you could have a work experience that turns into a friendship experience. And it might be you and I doing this, right? Through volunteering, that something could come on from that on the side. But surround yourself with successful people. I'm repeating that for a reason. I forget the exact, and you might be able to help me, Wayne, but it's you become the sum of, or you become the average of the 6 or 7 closest people to you. So you tend to emulate the people that are around you, tend to become like them. If there are successful people around you, you likely will have success because all you hear day in, day out is success. If people are mopey and negative and depressed and they always think about the negatives, you, if you stay there, could potentially be pulled into that negativity. So it's really important to recognize your network and is a positive, a neutral, or a negative network. But then also, you said you had a step in the path. Your life is followed by a series of steps, pebbles in the stream, steps in the path. And I think that's wonderful because I don't know if you said these exact words, but it's about the message that we feel when we're functioning in life, right? And you had your limited time, your expiration date, as you said, and
Yeah.
your job doesn't define you, right? And I had an episode titled, I think it was called "Your Job Title Doesn't Define You." Your job is what you do. Maybe there's a little plaque or something on your door. Maybe you wear a little name tag. Maybe you have an embroidered shirt. That's great, and it says the role that you perform. But that's not who you are. And Wayne, your message so far is all about it's what's inside you, your drive, your vision. And you've taken a few, left turns, right turns, and maybe there's a U-turn coming up I don't know about. But you've got a really variety of set of stories here that I really appreciate you sharing. And I'll let you get back to the next step in your path. But this is just really interesting, and I appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Me and my buddy, God, I've known this guy for 20 years, and we always call ourselves eagles because, you can't soar like an eagle when you're hanging around with turkeys.
Nice. And
And
I know this from Mr. Deeds, the movie. I love it.
and he's right. And the other thing is, and this is going to sound maybe a little egotistical, but that's not the place where it's coming from. But people come in and out of your lives for reasons, and sometimes it's just a season, and sometimes it's a longer period of time. But you got to again take inventory of those relationships and capitalize on the ones that make sense. And sometimes you got to let go. And I remember I had an attorney working with me, and every time we went to lunch, and we went to lunch pretty regularly, he was this negative Debbie Downer individual. And, I love the guy to death. He was my fraternal brother. We broke bread, we drank beers together. And I finally went up to him and I said, "Hey, I can't hang out with you anymore." And he looked at me and I said, "You're just bringing me down. And I need to be up. I need to stay positive. I need to be able to breed positivity in these negative situations. And every time I'm around you, I don't feel, I love you. You're a great guy. But I just can't hang around with you. I'll do anything for you. I just can't hang around with you." And sadly, our relationship stopped. But I have talked to him since, and, he's retired now and life is good and he's doing this and that. But it was eating away at me, and I had to do something about it, and I had to take a tough stand. And God, honest truth, that was our conversation, and we still worked together for years until I left.
Yeah. And those, I thank you for being transparent and sharing today about that. I've had my share of negative situations, challenging upbringing in my childhood, things of that nature. And sometimes we can't always see those negative situations. Sometimes I'll say we might accept those situations. That's just the way it is. And it's helpful, in my opinion, to hear stories like yours, because it gives us some food for thought, some ways to look at things differently, and maybe challenge the status quo, or simply question, is there something else? Is there a polar opposite to this? Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 126 with Wayne Witczak from the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. We're concluding part 1. Please make sure you stay tuned next week for part 2, where we have a powerful conclusion. If you've not subscribed to Career Growth Made Easy, please do so now so you don't miss out on future episodes. And it's always a great idea to join our email list. You never know when you might get some bonus subscriber content or special discount codes only available to those on our email list. I am Craig Ansell, your host, and this is the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every Monday. In the meantime, why don't you follow us on social media at Craig Ansell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To book a coaching appointment, download our free guides, or join our email list, check out the links in the description below.